So listen to this setup. I'm building my first real game. It's a roguelike tower defense in Godot, but without using the Godot Editor at all. Okay? I'm only going to be using AI coding agents, vibe coding if you will, and I will not be writing any lines of code myself. Even though I am a full stack engineer, currently a software architect, I've been programming and building software for over 20 years. So I know how to write code, I know how to set up systems, I know how to structure things. I will not be writing any lines of code for this particular game, and I haven't so far, and there's a lot of stuff there. But who knows? I have no idea if this will all come crash and burn, or or if it'll be a huge success. So I guess we'll see. Follow along with me, and yeah, let's find out. Alright, so let's head into the editor so I can show you that there's nothing really going on here. You see there's a single scene, there's nothing in it. There's some nodes over on the left that were added through code. I didn't manually add those. The camera control actually can be deleted. I currently don't have any sort of camera movement. I removed that a little bit ago. But yeah, as you can see, there's nothing going on here. Everything's through the code, which I can kind of jump to next. Alright, so here's my VS Code. I'll just go through some of the directories. We have our scripts. Everything's very well organized. Everything has good separation. As you see, we have our scripts, and then those goes into our entities, which goes into our buildings, which then goes into our attack towers. And then it shows you I have each, currently there's 5 attack towers, the pulse emitter, sniper tower. Some of the names won't change. We have a link node, which is really interesting. It's one of my favorite parts of the game so far. We have a compute node. Need to change that. It looks like that's calling it a computer node. So there are some things like that in this, which is kind of fun of all of this, I think. Have some of the core game scripts, grid scripts, things like that. The connection is part of that link node thing, which is very important. So we'll show that. Pathfinding. There's a lot in there because we have different waves and multi-lanes. We have the tools, which is a stat tweaker, which is really cool, which I'll show you next. So even though I'm not using the Godot editor, I am using a front-end editor through the browser. I know it might kind of seem backwards, but I'm a long time, build a bunch of websites, feel very comfortable in the web domain and just in general. So I went with that route. A funny story, or not funny to me at all, but I tried building a lot of this previously in a different code base and was trying to do enterprise type software using async and await and doing all these config files, and it was terrible. Completely I had to start over. This is actually, if I'm being honest, my 4th attempt. My first 3 all bombed and crashed and whatnot. But looking up here, we have the AI coding agent. I have multiple entry point MD files, or just in general MD files, to give quick context and rules to the agents, which I'll go over with you guys more later, for sure. So moving over to the stat tweaker. So as you can see, this is the how I can kind of edit stats. So there's the max health of, say, the basic enemy. I apply changes. That sticks. You see how it says 100 there. This actually goes and updates the files inside my code base directly. I could change background music. I have debug compute going on, or I can toggle them off and on. I could jump to a current level, jump to a current wave in that level. Here's some of the attack towers. Here's some of the support towers. Right. There's wave scaling, and then the levels is what I've done a lot of work in. So as you can see, I can fully edit the levels in the different waves. So I can just click onto there and save, and that will save to it. I can delete it from here as well. Also, I can change the individual waypoints through these down here. I can also add those compute nodes. I can have multiple compute nodes, which compute nodes are ways for you to make more money. I can also move it through the visualization up there. So it gives me a lot of control on how to edit things. I can also modify the waves through this configuration as well. Choose the enemy, the count, and the spawn delay, add groups, add waves, things like that. Really makes updating the wave levels a lot easier, as well as just overall, you know, balancing the game, which is such a very important thing about tower defense. One thing I will wholeheartedly say about this game, or I won't even release it in a demoable form, is that it will be very, very balanced. That's one of my really big pet peeves about playing turret defense games. They have like this great game around it, but then it's just not balanced well. So call me on that, mark me on that. If you find things are unbalanced, please call me out on it. But anyway, this is the stat tweaker. Okay, so jumping over to my editor, or I guess this is my terminal. I use Warp for my AI coding agents. And what I'm about to type here is give me all my, my attack towers. I also built an MCP, which is a Model Context Protocol server, to allow my AI agents to get information on the game a lot easier without having to go through code files. So for instance, if it needs to get all the attack towers and the information on that, it can just pull out one of the MCP tools. I've used multiple different coding agents, Codex, Claude Code, Cursor, things like that, but I really like Warp. Warp is my jam. If you go over to here, I'm just showing where the MCP server is set up. As you can see, it's got a bunch of different things that it can call. It also helps me with the hygiene of the code base. I can get all files over 200 lines. I like to keep all my files around 200 lines when doing AI agentic coding, and just in general. More on that later for sure. So let me tell you a little bit more about the game. The game is called the Simulation Series Tower Defense. Currently, that's the name. I'm just building a pulse emitter. What the pulse emitter does is it charges up and then it shoots. It was the first tower that I built. Here I'm building the overclocker and then a link node. And as you can see, there's some blue lines going from those. So the pulse emitter is an attack tower, and then the overclocker is a support tower, and it support towers buff the attack towers. So what that overclocker does is it increases the speed. This increases the range. The graphics there are temporary, especially that bullseye. That's just something I had AI create, but that won't stay there. So as you can see, those link nodes are connecting things. So instead of just having a range of stuff to buff it, you're gonna have to connect them into smart in different ways. And I'm gonna add more types of gameplay and depth to that. So what you can see, they're going down a path, and then they have to go down that middle path. As you can see, that sniper tower in the middle just overheated, so I'm gonna have a heating system, which will also be pretty important. I do want to have high depth and high into the game, but I do want you to be able to just step in and play it, but then as you continue to play, you can get better. I have a full upgrading system, cell system, have the battle management hub, that snowflake there, also just a random generated shape through AI currently that cools things down so they don't overheat as fast, and if they do overheat, they can cool down faster. Those enemies you see on the screen right now they're tank enemies. That's why they're a little bit bigger, have more health, and go a little bit slower. Again, building the very important cooldown tower. Right there we have the payload launcher. So that's kind of like the splash damage. As you can see, it shoots out and blows up into a splash damage. Really trying to go for that synthwave, futuristic simulation type style. I will say what you see here is not definitively fully decided on, but I am liking the direction it's going in. I do like how it looks so far. I just added a firewall tower. Currently a little OP, if I'm being honest, but it is cool. I have it as it's the first, I don't know if you can see at the bottom, but every time a building is built, you get a random list of other buildings. Kind of has that roguelike feel, that randomness to it, and the firewall tower is currently the only legendary rarity item, so it is very rare to get, but when you get it, it is very strong. But I still think I'm going to nerf it a little bit. Don't come for me. So as you can see, there's different ways of connecting the buildings. It has a system where it's at 100% if it's within 4 tiles, but then tiles 5 and 6 away, it's only 50% and it'll turn orange, and then anything after that it won't connect. So that has definitely been the hardest thing to work through, is all the different variations and combinations, especially doing it through the AI agentic coding. Have had to do a lot of back and forth, but I'm getting very close to where I like it a lot. And so yeah, that's the end of that first wave. I think I'll end things here. If anybody has any questions, definitely reach out and let me know. Thank you.